Donald Trump came in and he was like, I'm gonna help. I'm gonna totally de-escalate this situation. I'm gonna de-escalate this situation. And we were like, ah, my man, you've never de-escalated a thing in your life. In your life. From your hair to your politics, nothing is a de-escalation. Nothing.
Is referring to the fact that Democrats have now seized on this as if they ever wanted transparency when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, which is an asinine suggestion for any Democrat to make.
Trevor Noah didn't just challenge Karoline Leavitt. He crushed her like a comedic wrecking ball, shattering a fragile glass house of rehearsed lines. And this was no polite political exchange. It was a relentless comedic air raid, with Melania and Trump unexpectedly caught in the blast radius. One moment, Karoline was fiercely defending the MAGA throne with every ounce of determination, and the next, she seemed to be mentally searching how to recover from verbal whiplash in real time. If you think political showdowns can get intense, you haven't seen Trevor's sly smirk as he dismantles a carefully polished narrative, tearing it apart piece by piece. This wasn't just a roast. It was a slow-burn comedic barbecue of chaos that left nothing intact.
Like, I don't like how Iran and Israel are launching bombs at each other all the time. So many bombs, we can't have this, it's not right. Too many bombs, we gotta stop it. No more bombs, we gotta stop it, we gotta fix it. And they're like, all right, how are you gonna fix it? He's like, by dropping bombs. I'm gonna drop bombs.
Now, regarding the ongoing situation in Iran, I know there has been a lot of speculation amongst all of you in the media regarding the president's decision-making and whether or not the United States will be directly involved. In light of that news, I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, "Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks."
If you're enjoying this spectacle, remember, every click keeps the fire roaring hotter. But the real explosion happened when Karoline Leavitt, the human press release in designer heels, decided it was a brilliant move to stride into the media spotlight and defend Trump and Melania like they were the dramatic finalists of a reality show no one had ever requested. She stepped in radiating confidence, armed with more polished lines than a teleprompter running overtime, clearly expecting a round of soft, easy questions. Instead, she was met with Trevor Noah, steady, unshaken, and charged with the kind of razor-sharp energy that comes from both caffeine and a zero-tolerance policy for empty spin.
Oh, leave it to Fox News not to recognize what rejection from a woman looks like.
She slapped his hand away, which probably means she wants a promotion first, right?
Now, on the next leg of Trump's trip, which took him to the Vatican, Trump's hands really couldn't catch a break because this time, the First Lady gave him the old down low, too slow, which made me wonder, like, when you watch that, do you think maybe Melania is jealous?
From the very first moment, Karoline's playbook was crystal clear. Repackage the Trump image as if it were still 2016 and pretend the last 8 years had simply vanished. The problem? Trevor Noah isn't the type to fall for a glossy MAGA fairy tale. She rolled out her rehearsed script, praising Trump like he had just performed miracles and portraying Melania as the Mona Lisa of misunderstood first ladies. For a short while, it almost seemed her story might hold together, until Trevor hit her with that unmistakable look, part amused curiosity, part readiness to roast her straight into another dimension without even breaking a sweat.
A serious question, is reporting on this administration actually fun? Because this is some real serious shit that we're dealing with. So is it, do you look at it, can you make a joke out of this?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, I'm not going to give Donald Trump the pleasure of being the boogeyman.
Right.
You know what I mean? He wishes he was that guy. That's why he's got that face. The thing he does. No, seriously, he wants to be that dude where everyone's like, wow, I'm so afraid of him. Man, you got to laugh at the guy. You know what I'm saying? You've got to laugh at people like him, because I think leaders like that sometimes they command or they demand a respect that they don't deserve.
Right.
And in my honest opinion, that's one of the great things you can do to leaders like this is you laugh.
She quickly switched to defense mode, pulling Melania into the spotlight as if she were a glittering get-out-of-jail-free card. The strategy was obvious: turn sympathy into a shield. In her version, Melania was the silent saint, a graceful symbol of elegance and quiet endurance. The woman who somehow managed to survive the hardship of living in gold-plated luxury, surrounded by designer gowns, and speaking barely a handful of words for 4 straight years. In Karoline's telling, Melania wasn't just a first lady, she was a modern-day martyr, and she believed this polished narrative was completely untouchable.
In the United States of America, if you want to win an election, all you need to have is a strange voice. Simple as that. You want to be president of the United States? Get a strange voice, you're done. Yeah, forget policies, forget ideas, that's boring. You come out there with a strange voice, the people love it. You realize there's been no American president who has a normal speaking voice, none. Trump, that was the weirdest of all.
That's when Trevor began the takedown. Not by shouting or steamrolling, but with the precision of a master comic assassin. He let her words linger in the air like stale perfume before slicing them apart with the calm sharpness of a surgeon wielding a chainsaw. No need to raise his voice. The comedy carried all the weight. With a dry wit that made you laugh first and think later, he reminded everyone that Melania's story was far from a Disney fairy tale. Still, Karoline refused to retreat, doubling down instead, insisting Trump and Melania were innocent victims of relentless bullying, as if Trevor might suddenly feel pity for billionaires with private jets and endorsement deals. It was almost endearing, like watching someone argue that a crocodile needs therapy because a duck gave it a funny look.
I feel like Trump would be exactly the same even if he spoke Arabic. It would be like the same thing. He'd be like,
Trevor, the undisputed master of understatement, let Karoline's own words slowly unravel her case without lifting so much as a finger. No interruptions, just calm nods and the occasional raised eyebrow that said more than any rebuttal ever could. It was devastating, like watching a magician pull endless scarves from a hat. Except this hat overflowed with bad takes, and Trevor was standing by with scissors. He turned the moment into a roast with research, pulling up old interviews, public reactions, and the internet's collective memory to spotlight just how absurd her rewrite of history really was. Fresh material wasn't even necessary. Trump's record is already a live-action sitcom. All Trevor had to do was hold up the mirror, and Karoline walked right into it. The audience didn't just laugh, they winced, as if watching someone proudly defend a mixtape while it played horribly out of tune on a warped cassette.
Trump reminds me of one African leader in particular. Weird hair? Check. Lavish lifestyle? Check. Fringe, discredited views about President Obama's origins?
And along came a black citizen of Kenyan African origin, a Muslim. His name is Obama.
Check. Oh, and there's one more thing.
Then came the wild idea of dragging Melania into 2025 as some kind of heroic figure. This is a woman who has barely been seen in public a handful of times since leaving the White House. And her most viral post-presidency moment was a Christmas tree that looked like it had been cursed in a haunted forest. If Karoline's goal was nostalgia, she cracked open a time capsule filled with awkward photo ops and questionable fashion choices. With flawless comedic timing, Trevor reminded everyone that Melania wasn't bullied. She was simply missing. Her public appearances were like seasonal fast food specials, rare, random, and often underwhelming. So when Karoline reached the peak of her speech, claiming Trump and Melania embodied everything good about America, Trevor was already dismantling the fantasy like someone taking apart IKEA furniture with a butter knife. Revealing contradictions so smoothly, she didn't even realize she was being fact-checked in real time.
American president was predictable. You understood the ebb and flow. Trump, you never knew what to expect, right? The volume on his voice all over the place, inflection where it didn't make sense. Do you know how hard it was to figure out where to put the volume on your TV when watching a speech? Because you wouldn't know where it would happen. He'd be up there.
I think as Americans, we try and try, so try, big trying, all trying, and it is. But I know, and I think if we can, what we won't, but we will, but maybe, but. What?
This wasn't just about Trump or Melania. It was about the entire circus of political spin. Figures like Karoline walk in armed with a preloaded script, hoping no one will demand proof. Trevor shredded that script into confetti, exposing the absurdity of defending two people who only step into the spotlight when there's something in it for them. He went after the logic, not the person, which somehow made it even sharper and funnier. The audience soaked up every second. This wasn't a debate. It was a comedy masterclass in dismantling a story without ever raising your voice. Meanwhile, Karoline was probably backstage, frantically flipping through her mental cue cards, wondering how she'd been verbally flattened by nothing more than a smirk and a coffee mug. Every claim she tossed out was countered with a flashback, every defense dismantled with a perfectly timed jab of common sense. By the end, the crowd wasn't just laughing. They were drowning in secondhand embarrassment.
One glimmer of hope that I get from Donald Trump is that he also doesn't know what he's doing. He's in it with us, which is a nice change. Oftentimes we're at the mercy of those in power, but he's in the mercy with us. Like we're all locked in a prison cell, but he's holding the key and he's like, we're all trapped. What are we gonna do? We're like, use the key. What? What are you talking about? And the reason I say this is because Trump came out and he hosted a press conference about dropping the bombs.
Somewhere between her fourth claim that Melania was misunderstood and her sixth declaration of Trump's sainthood, the truth became impossible to ignore. Karoline wasn't there for a conversation. She was delivering a one-woman monologue. Trevor, without skipping a beat, turned that monologue into one long, rolling punchline. Melania, the unintentional headliner of this political circus, remained silent as ever. No tweet, no post, just the faint echo of stilettos disappearing into the distance. That silence only made Karoline's defense seem even more absurd. Imagine launching a full-scale crusade for someone who won't even update her Instagram. That's either fierce loyalty or complete delusion. And in this case, it was almost impossible to tell the difference. The fallout was instant. Social media went into overdrive. The lesson was clear. Never step into a comedian's arena armed with a recycled script, especially when that comedian is Trevor Noah and your subject is a couple who ghosted America after turning the White House into a bargain bin reality show.
Last week was President Trump's first international trip. Instead of his visits and looking at the effects on U.S.-Israel relations, everyone was focused on Donald-Melania relations.
The thing that got an enormous amount of media attention had to do with Melania Trump, the First Lady, and some video. Was this an actual slap, or did she just pull her hand away? She pulled her hand away, but I didn't quite see the contact of a slap.
Karoline came chasing her big moment. And she got it, just not in the way she'd imagined. Trevor didn't simply dismantle her arguments. He revealed them for what they truly were. Borrowed talking points dressed up in emotional sparkle. Nice from a distance, but falling apart the second you pulled a single thread. In the process, Melania became the living symbol of "I'm not involved," while Karoline nearly set herself ablaze trying to defend a First Lady who had long since ghosted America. Somewhere in her quiet corner of luxury, Melania was likely sipping in perfect silence, untouched by the chaos. The real irony? Karoline insisted she was the most bullied woman in America, while Melania herself had gracefully slipped out of the public eye. No statements, no appearances, nothing. Her entire strategy seemed to be letting Karoline do all the talking while she stayed invisible. Trevor saw it instantly. And his response wasn't just a joke. It was a surgical takedown with a microphone, calmly reminding everyone that Melania hasn't even pretended to care.
Trust in President Trump. He knows what he's doing. This is a proven economic formula. Every day the president is signing executive orders to cut regulation, especially when it comes to Environmental Protection Agency, our energy industry. That's going to unleash the economic boom in this country that we saw in the president's first term.
Which brings up the obvious question. Has Melania completely walked away from it all? Has she disconnected from the MAGA machine for good? Maybe she's just counting down the days until Barron is grown, ready to vanish into some kind of private escape with a martini in hand, never to be seen again. Trevor's brilliance was in making you laugh at the absurdity before you realized you were watching a live parody of propaganda falling apart in real time. Because the truth is, he wasn't just cracking jokes, he was pulling at every loose thread in Karoline's scripted talking points until the entire sweater came undone. What looked like a roast was actually a methodical fact-check, delivered with flawless comedic timing and a sharp sense of reality. Meanwhile, Karoline's PR team was probably drafting a dozen half-hearted apology statements before deleting them in frustration. The public's verdict was unanimous. Trevor didn't just respond, he obliterated the whole narrative. And as the dust settled, he grinned and shrugged, leaving behind the line of the night. Sometimes the loudest defense is just covering for the quietest absence.
It's because Trump came out and he hosted a press conference about it. It was so wild. He hosted a press conference about dropping the bombs. And he was shocked in the press conference. He came out and he's like, earlier today, the United States military, that's us, launched missiles, bunker busters, launched missiles on Iran, on all their nuclear facilities. And boy, you don't understand. You've never seen bombs like that before. They came down and they dropped them those bombs. Well, I couldn't believe what those bombs were doing. I couldn't believe it.
It all collapsed in seconds, because sometimes all it takes is a calm voice, a pile of receipts, and the comedic aim of a sniper to destroy a story built entirely on hot air. And let's be honest, if the best defense of Melania is that she wore elegant coats and stayed quiet, the argument was already on life support. This isn't the 1950s. First ladies aren't judged on posture and silence anymore. They're expected to actually engage. Melania, however, mastered the art of disappearing. And Karoline, with her PR-polished determination, tried to spin that absence into a dazzling legacy, only for it to crash and burn the moment it hit reality. It became a textbook example of why you never bring propaganda to a satire fight. Next time, start with facts instead of flashcards. Or better yet, don't try to sell the world on Melania Trump as the most bullied woman in history while she's likely somewhere quietly Googling the meaning of irrelevant.